Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, author of Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Your Life and host of this podcast, Incredible Life Creator. And today, my guest is Ritu Gill. Welcome to the podcast, Ritu.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Yes, so let's just read your bio. Ritu Gill is an intelligence analyst with over 60 years of experience working in open source intelligence, OSINT. After a 12-year career with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Ritu set up a consulting business providing OSINT training and research to law enforcement and related entities across North America. Ritu holds a bachelor's degree in criminology from Kwantlen Polytechnic University and is actively involved in the OSINT community. So I am very excited to have this interview with you because, as I was telling you, I don't know a lot about this OSINT, so I'd like to learn. So tell us about you, how you started out, how you got into this.
Well, thanks for that introduction. Yeah, I pretty much there's a lot of different steps I've taken to get where I am today. I am going on over 16 years, as you mentioned. I really started, I always say this, from the ground up. When I finished my bachelor's degree in criminology, is when I was seeking out a job. I was like, okay, I want to work for the police. I didn't know exactly what that would look like. And I thought getting my foot in the door was step one, and then I could work my way up. And that's essentially what happened. Because I didn't fall into an analytical role or even as a researcher. I did admin work, and then I made sure my managers knew that I was really interested in research, maybe being a crime analyst, that type of work. And I got those opportunities one by one. It just took a lot of steps to get there. To take you a little, so I could go through it in more detail as well, but really, like, I ended up working for our our local city here, and then so I was a municipal employee for the police, and then I worked there for a few years. After that, I went federal, and I started working for the RCMP federally, which is our federal police force here in Canada, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Again, I've always been on the civilian side, as in not a police officer. I've done either admin roles and then gone into doing research, doing analytical stuff as well. One thing that got me into OSINT, so we talked, that's a big topic, open source intelligence. A lot of people will probably wonder, what does that mean? I would say it's I teach people how to use the internet as an investigative tool. And that's also how I use the internet. So you can think of it as a researcher. Other people like to describe it as, if you get on Netflix and you watch something like, there's documentaries about online sleuthing. That's essentially what I do, but in a professional manner. And that's what I've been doing for a number of years.
Wonderful. So first of all, when you said you started out, you wanted to work for the police. Why did you want to work for the police?
I always wanted to work for the police. I think it was just I had a lot of role models growing up, and I always thought it was a cool job to get into. So for me, the role models I had around me that were in law enforcement, that's kind of what give me that insight, just from a child, from being a kid really, and seeing that, and then thinking, hey, that might be something I want to do. And really, I feel that really molded me into who I am today as well. But that was why I got in, or I was interested in getting into that.
Mm-hmm. And then like criminology in your major, what was so interesting about that and the analysis you do?
Yeah, so criminology was again, like, I mean, getting into it, I went straight from high school straight into doing my degree. And it was kind of a shock a little bit, going from little high school to, okay, now we're the big kids. Really, it was a process, right? First year, just figuring everything out. But it was really like the third and fourth year where I felt it was the most effective, because they had pretty specific classes too. Once you get through the intro level stuff, you get into the very like specific topics, right? Whether it's to do with restorative justice or corrections and our prison system in Canada, different things. Because they were so specific, I felt like we covered some topics really well. That was a while ago though, because I graduated with my degree, my criminology degree in 2007. So it feels like a lifetime ago.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's kind of, I always thought, again, I was like, okay, I'll probably get into policing. That's why I did criminology. Met a lot of interesting people along the way, made a lot of friends. Most people that were working towards their degree, criminology degree at least, were either trying to go into policing or law. They wanted to be lawyers. So that's kind of the two different things that I saw when I was at that stage.
So as part of your work, were you working with like detectives or people who are trying to find information on the internet, or what was your role?
Yeah, so really like when it comes to my full-time job, it is, there's two parts to it. It's asking that question, how can you use the internet as an investigative tool? How can you use it as a researcher? That's another way to put it, really, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot of information online. I always tell people, depending on what country or what area you live in, it makes a huge difference in terms of what are public sources of information. So that's that open source part of it. So as an example, in Canada, public records are not exactly readily available. Depending on what province you're from, some information is hidden always. I feel like our privacy laws are pretty high here. However, I've noticed in other countries, and I just say the US, for example, has very different privacy laws. And that impacts us as researchers. So it's a good day if you're doing research in the US, I think, because you have lots of public information there.
Mhm. Now, does it matter where you're researching from as far as I've heard some people say, uh, kind of to fool Google or whatever, they'll buy this certain software that they can actually surf the web, but the Google or whoever's on the web, they don't know what location you're from. Does that
Yeah, yeah. So I think you're talking about a VPN, I think,
yes,
a
a
virtual
VPN.
private. Yeah, so a virtual private network. So that's something us as OSINT people we use all the time because I might be doing some research into somebody. Do I want my internet service provider to be looking at all my searches? Not really. So this is why I may use a VPN to make it, to hide some of that information, right? Really. Also, there's different ways we want to use VPNs. VPNs can be used for privacy. They can be also used to search in different regions in the world. So, and as an example, if I'm working on something and it is in a region where from a Canadian IP, I can't access it, you can jump onto a VPN, change your location to said region, and now you can get access to a certain website, that type of thing. So VPNs are really useful. I recommend them because I think it's privacy is important. Two sides of what I do, although I'm using a lot of open source information online, I also promote privacy at the same time. I do a privacy talk, which I've done numerous times for different audiences, but I like to show people why they should care about their online privacy. And I try to show them by giving them examples of how other people have like compromised themselves online by posting too much information. Nowadays, you see so much stuff, not only in movies and documentaries and online in general, but you could see somebody looks at a photo and says, "Hey, can you geolocate this?" And you can find out, "Hey, that person took that photo in that location." So again, protecting your privacy matters, and it does make a difference on who you are. If you are a very public person, everybody knows who you are, your privacy might be a little different, but you might not want people to know exactly where you live, right? You might not want them to know your address. But one thing I could say is when we look at public sources in certain countries, you can find that information about people, long as you have their name. And if they own a property in a certain area, you can find it, which is a little scary, right?
Mhm. That's true because I'm doing some real estate, and if I see a property I like, I go on the internet, I see who owns it, and then I put in that was it True People Finder or something, and you
Yeah.
can find a lot of people on there. Just it's right there,
Ye-
their phone number, their address for
yes,
free.
exactly. So those are public records, and they get aggregated on different websites, so they're all over, right? Even if it's not on one site, you'll find it on another. There's always a backup site there. But again, concerning, because I'm like, oh my god, yes, this is great for research, but concerning for privacy, because to me, that's one of the good things I like about where I live. You can't search for my name and just find out what my address is. Like I have a certain degree of like security around me, of course, because of what I do. But people know I live in Vancouver. People might know exactly where in Vancouver I live, like general area wise, but I try not to give more than that.
Yeah. So what things shouldn't we post? I mean, should we post pictures of our children or shouldn't we? I mean, what is safe to post and what is safe, not to post?
Yeah, so the way I look at it is, people have these conversations all the time where they say, like, you'll get two different sides, right? I mean, I have lots of friends with kids, but I have friends without kids too. But the ones with kids, some of them are on the mindset of, yes, I love posting photos of my kids and the family, and that's what they do. However, at what stage do you want that child to have control of their online privacy? Because if you've started from when they were born and they have an online presence already, what if they don't want to be a public person, but you pretty much made them a public person by the age of 10? I even think things of like, hey, if somebody did, and I know not everybody wants to go into a career like I did, but if somebody did want to go into policing, or maybe they want to work for a spy agency, or maybe they want to work for something where they're undercover, if they have an online presence from that young of an age to all the way into their teen years, like that is going to be an issue moving forward, because that's kind of, if you have an online footprint and your photos are everywhere, well, that's going to be a problem, right? To some degree, because you want to stay hidden as much as possible in certain roles like that.
Right. So what are things definitely don't post? Like definitely don't post.
Yeah, I would say a lot of people will post photos in front of their house, like especially when they buy a new house, and they'll be like, hey, look, and then right behind them is the address, that kind of thing. I'm like, okay, don't do that. um just generally, you don't want everybody knowing maybe where you live. But other things, like even things that might not be so apparent, like where I live locally, I noticed that this restaurant posted keys, like in a social media post saying, hey, we just got the keys to our place, and it was so zoomed up. And I don't know if you know, but people that want to breach people like that, they can literally take that photo and they can make a copy of that key. It's been done before. But this restaurant they weren't aware of that, so they just did it because they were like, oh, fun social post, we got a new business, this is what we're doing. And then I'm like, take that down, that is a bad idea. I'm not saying that their people looking at them are going to do something, but it only takes one person to be like, hey, they've just posted their keys to their office, and hey, maybe I'll break in at 12 at night when nobody's around. So these are things like we have to be aware of, right? You can literally take a photo, and if you Google it, you'll see stories where people have done that.
Mhm.
So again, you can copy a key just from a photo, right? There's a way to do that. And that's why things like that don't seem so apparent can be done. Yeah, other things I see people posting sometimes is their like passports or their not Canadian, just general passports, and then also their boarding passes. So, because that's kind of like the Instagram thing to do nowadays, right? But the barcode on your ticket gives somebody information about who you are, because you can scan those barcodes, right? There's information within that barcode. A number of years ago, somebody had posted, I was looking for examples of poor operational security. So like just examples of privacy breaches in my eyes. And this one person had like posted their boarding pass, but covered their name, but then the barcode was showing still. So I took the barcode and then I ran it through a barcode reader and I was like, okay, this is the person's real name. So they weren't aware that you could do that, right? So this is why, again, like I show people that you can do this. Other people with like bad intentions can do it. So let's try to be better when we're online.
Yeah, for sure. And I know when I take a picture, even with my iPhone, I think it has like it has your location, I think, right with the picture. So is there a way to
Yeah.
turn it off on your phone so that it doesn't tell what location you're at when you're taking the picture?
Yeah, like there's a lot of settings within our devices. Like, really, the way I look at it, our phones are little tracking devices. They track everything we do, everywhere we go. I know there's settings within a phone that you can switch off, but essentially they are tracking devices that everybody carries around in their pocket or in their purse or bag or whatever. Um, there are certain settings. It's really hard to keep up with the latest versions because there's always some new update, but I know a number of years ago when I did have an iPhone, um, they had this, and they might still have it in their security settings, but like within your settings, your location services would be switched on, and it would be tracking your frequent locations. But within that, when you would look, a lot of people were unaware that this was switched on. They could see when you arrived at a certain address and then when you left. So over time, they would see a pattern. So if you were somebody who that kept going to one address every morning at 8 and then you left at 4, and then you went to another address an hour later, which they start guessing that's your office and this is your home. And if you do that over time, it's going to make that assumption that, hey, you work at this university and you live about an hour away, and it'll tell you the address as well. So when you show people examples of that, that's where they're like, oh God, that's kind of scary. Because it literally, like, I mean, it's a good thing because if somebody gets caught up in something bad, it's a way to prove or disprove something as well, right? To say, no, I wasn't there, or yes, you were there,
Mhm.
because it shows, unless somebody else was holding your phone, it was probably you.
Wow. So do you ever work with the courts on the things you do as far as researching for cases, things like that?
I've definitely had some contact with our courts, in terms of files and stuff like that I've worked on. But it's at like a arm's length, like it's not something I do on a daily basis.
Mhm. So tell me about forensic OSINT.
Yeah, for sure. So forensic OSINT is something I actually co-founded late last year. It is a tool, it's a Chrome extension for OSINT investigators. And if you're wondering, like, what exactly does it do? Well, it captures online content, because people typically that do open source work, they might need to go to court. So they use this add-on that you can add into your Chrome browser, and it allows them to make captures easily. It's user-friendly. It saves metadata, so it saves the date and time stamp of when something was captured, so that when you go to court, you meet their standard of, okay, you have the date and time stamped. And then there's other information included that shows the courts that you haven't manipulated anything in your screenshots. So it stands up, the integrity part is what stands up in court. So that's something I got involved in last year, and it's been pretty exciting, but very, very busy.
Yeah. So, are you the one that developed the app, or you were just promoting it?
I am a co-founder, and there's another co-founder as well. And he actually approached me with the idea, and I saw value in it, and so I said, "This is a great thing. Let's do this." And then we got right into it, and we launched this thing. So it's definitely a lot of work, but also very exciting because I've never co-founded anything like this before.
That is exciting. Now I know not everybody can see it, but there is a picture of a bear behind you, and you're living up in Vancouver.
Yep.
And I know you like mountain biking and you also like bears. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about mountain biking. When did you start that? What is it about it that you love?
Yeah, for sure. So I was introduced to that last year, which was pretty exciting, but also pretty scary, especially when you're coming down the mountain very, very fast. But yeah, it's more of a summer hobby for me. Something I got introduced to. Uh, Again, when you're mountain biking down the hill and there's bears in the area because you're in their area. Again, that's actually from a local artist. So I thought that was kind of I think bears are really cool. They're kind of neat, and yeah, definitely something exciting. It's exciting to try something new, especially something that gets me off the computer, because I spend so much time in front of the computer. But when you get into something that you're like, hey, this is fun, and it's something that is really just like a summer thing for me, it's something to look forward to.
Mhm. Yeah. And what about bears? What is special about bears? Is that your, sometimes the people call it their totem aim animal, or their animal? Is that your animal? And is there something about what bears do or how they act, or what is it about it that is so interesting?
Yeah, like I mean, for us, the black bears that we see here are just sorry, the bears that we see are like black bears typically. I mean, I wouldn't want to see a grizzly, to be honest,
Mhm.
because I think it's a different experience. That said, the black bears, they're pretty casual because they're used to people, especially if you're up in the mountain, and whether you're biking and they're out, they are used to people being around. And really, unless they have cubs with them, they're pretty chill.
Mhm.
But again, everybody's experience might be different, and it's really like how you react as well, right? Because I'm sure they feed off that energy. Yeah, for me, I think it's just with some of the bear canvases I have, I really like this local artist, and she does a lot of yeah, bear photos and just like different animals, I would say, but the bears just stick out to me. I think they look neat.
Uh-huh. They are, and they can be very mischievous. I mean, so I'm in Georgia, and people tell me who live a little further north from me, when they're out kind of in the woods, sometimes they have to put like fences or cages or anything around their trash can because the bears will get in there, and they seem to even be able to rip apart anything and just get to those trash cans.
Yeah, yeah. Here we have like those double lock trash cans where like they're supposed to be bear proof, like bears can't open them, but I've seen videos online of bears opening car doors, so I'm not really sure what's happening. I don't know if that's a thing, but yeah, they're smart. They figure their way around, but yeah, the trash cans and stuff, you definitely can't leave any food out or anything. Otherwise, you're pretty much calling them into your backyard.
Exactly, yeah. They love to eat like all of us, but they really love to come after food. I know that. So,
Exactly.
but now if people wanted to connect with you, You said you're doing the privacy thing, so I'm not sure, but if they wanted to connect with you, they wanted to find out about your extension, the forensic OSINT extension, where could they find you?
So you can find me in a lot of places. If you just Google my name, Ritu Gill, in quotes, you'll find me in a lot of different places. If you wanted to see something about the Chrome extension, you would go to forensicosint.com, or my online alias is OSINT Techniques. It is my company name, and I have a Twitter account called my handle is OSINT Techniques. You could follow me there. I'm on LinkedIn. If you put in my name, Ritu Gill, you'll find me there as well. Yeah, and you can connect there with me, and if you look on some of my social accounts, you'll see my email address as well. And that's also where sometimes people just have questions, or are curious about something, or they just want to say something. And yeah, I don't mind at all.
Wonderful. So now I have a personal question for you. What
Okay.
gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life at this point?
Right now, I would say I really enjoy working really hard on things that I want to achieve. So for me, it's like things like I wanted to create my own business, and I did it. I thought that was really big for me because, again, I was working full time, and I just thought, I'm like, I want to do this thing. I don't know what it's going to look like or what it could look like in 5 years. But I thought, if I don't start today, I'm just going to keep thinking about it. But I do, like, I find that gives me having that passion behind what I do, because I pretty much built this thing from the ground up, and it kind of took off, and I've been pretty much at it for a number of years. I started in 2016 with my consulting business.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and for teaching us so much about what you do, because it's been very, very interesting. So thank you. And now we all have to start paying attention to what we post and what we don't post so we can keep ourselves and our families safe.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. There's always going to be some tidbits on privacy, and there's so much stuff you can learn just online. Just be curious
Mhm.
and start searching for things like privacy tips, and like online privacy tips. There's tons of articles about it, and little things that you can do that will improve your online privacy.
Thank you. So one last question before we complete. What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
I would say do what you love, be who you are, and be kind to others.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ritu.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, we'll talk to you again soon.